Joining me today is Jeff Kovac of Four Seasons Tea. So thank you so much for joining me today, Jeff.
My pleasure. Thank you, Nicole.
No problem. Now, where are you based?
I'm from Toronto, Canada, born and raised. And right now, Four Seasons Tea is operating out of Toronto, but we're strictly online at the moment. But I guess to answer that question, it would be Toronto, Canada.
So tell me the story of how you first became interested in tea.
There's a short version and there's a long version. I think we should probably try to keep it short. I'm sure a lot of people who are interested in tea will say this, but I definitely grew up in a tea drinking family. It was always just black tea with milk. My grandmother ran restaurants, so serving tea after dinner and lunch and things like that, breakfast, was always very normal. So in my family, having black tea with milk, regular tea bag tea, was always just very natural in our family. And many years ago, I got interested in Darjeeling tea. And I'd read some information about Darjeeling tea and what was going on with the production of the tea. And one day I said, let me get my hands on some of this Darjeeling tea. And when I finally did that, it opened a whole new world to me of not having tea with milk and the different nuances and flavors and fruity things and floral things that were happening in that tea. Totally sparked or ignited something in me that got me curious into tea. So I got into Darjeeling teas, and then through a friend of mine, we were co-workers at a job. I got interested. His mother, he's a Chinese friend of mine, and his mother had come into town, and she was a lot of fun. And she had brought some teas with her, some Chinese tea, some nice jasmine teas, but very good quality. And I got exposed to Chinese teas a little bit that way, and after we met, it kind of opened my eyes to what might be happening in China. We became such good friends, and my friend and I, we were both laid off because we were working for a company that closed its Canadian operations. My friend said, hey, you met my mother, you want to jump on a plane and go with me to China? She said we could stay with her and we could travel a little bit through China. I said that would be a fantastic thing to do. I was over there for about 6 weeks. I got exposed to Chinese culture and some of the teas, and in Sichuan province, where we were visiting, there's a huge flourishing tea culture. There's tea shops on every corner. There's tea houses, on every corner. I had such a good time in that 6 weeks that when I came back to Canada, essentially, I was trying to decide what I was going to do. And I said, you know what, let me start looking for some work opportunities in China. I had such a wonderful time. And I think about 9 months later, I was on a plane and I moved actually back to Sichuan province where I lived for several years. And then over there, through a neighbor of mine who was a guy from Fujian province, he was like a fish out of water. He was living in Sichuan. His family actually produced Tiaguanyin tea, and he taught me everything he knew about that. And through friends of friends, I eventually got aligned with a very good friend of mine. I was tutoring her children a little bit to make some extra money, and she introduced me to her tea master. And I said, oh my gosh, you're a tea master. I thought we were going to have like a big Taoist, 7 foot tall with a flowing white beard and long fingernails. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're a tea master. Because in some of these families, they have these Chinese cultural people that will come into the house and teach the children the traditional instruments. Sometimes to the wives, they'll teach them about tea and cha dao and how to pour tea. So when I was meeting her tea master, I was very nervous and scared, but it ended up just being a young guy like myself. And she said, Mr. Liu, this is Jeff. Jeff, this is Mr. Liu. And my Chinese was good enough that we could communicate. She said, why don't you teach him English? Why doesn't he teach you tea? And then pretty much the rest of that was history. And eventually, by the time when my time in China was winding down, I was so into teas and trying different teas and learning about teas, learning how to pour the teas properly and traditionally, learning how to categorize tea in quality and how expensive teas versus everyday teas, how to pour them, how to judge the quality. I wasn't even really paying attention to my work at the end, and I was so into teas. I was always looking to move back, but the way things unfolded, when I came back to Canada, I had this new experience. I started working for a tea company here in Toronto, and then eventually, always in the back of my mind, it was to go out on my own. And about almost a year ago now, I decided to finally do that and start something for myself. I guess that was the long version. Sorry about that.
No, that definitely sounds like an awesome tea adventure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I know you've traveled to a lot of different tea regions around the world. What were some of your favorite places?
I would have to say I've been through India, I've been through China, I've been through Japan. I'd have to say for Japan, definitely Uji is kind of the main little place where you can travel and visit different shops. So Uji's fantastic, but Kyoto for the actual tea ceremony, Japanese culture and the different temples, Kyoto is fantastic. All the major tea companies there have their tea houses, which are worthwhile seeing. And in China, even though the best tea comes from Fujian province with a large variety and different types and styles, but I really like Sichuan. I love Sichuan because everybody there drinks tea. Maybe some of your readers didn't know the Gaiwan actually was invented in Sichuan. And going up the mountains like Meng Mountain, and because everybody drinks tea, it's got a little bit slower pace of life. There's tea shops on every corner and beautiful tea houses. There's more of a presence in Sichuan, so I think for that reason, I feel at home there, and there's an opportunity to try all kinds of fantastic teas.
I know you were working for a tea company, and so what inspired you to start Four Seasons Tea?
I think an opportunity, I think having been in the corporate world for so many years and having such a passion for something, to try to convert that into making it work for you financially is a big undertaking. But I always had it in the back of my mind when I was living in China that this is something that I'd like to do. And while I was here in Toronto, I got involved with Teaching for Tea, teaching for the Tea Association of Canada. And the company that I was working for was changing into a different direction. They were closing their retail operations, and I did a lot of the staff training and off-site training for the companies that we provided, but the tea company I was working for was going in a total wholesale direction. So it seemed like that was a good opportunity for me to kind of get out and do my own thing. And, I see that there is a lot of good tea out there, but I find for that very minute amount of people that might really be interested in the best of the best, I saw an opportunity there to perhaps provide that to people through the connections and the people that I've met in China from traveling out. And some of my teas I had to travel 6 hours on the train out to the Fujian countryside to meet with some of these producers. And through living there and getting to know people, the tea community knows each other in China just like here in North America. And through some of the contacts that I've made, I've been able to get my hands on some of these super high quality teas. And I thought that there was an opportunity to bring this to North America. I believe in learning tea. It's so important to taste tea. It's, I tell that to our students. I tell that to my friends, to people who I drink tea with. The more tea you taste, the better you're going to be able to identify quality in tea. And I saw a real opportunity to bring some of these teas. Especially for the teas that I sell, I try not to sell teas that I haven't studied and learned and acquired the real knowledge about. And I'm able, even in the Wuyi Mountains, I'm able actually to still get traditionally handmade teas. So 4 out of the 5 teas that I carry in my online shop from the Wuyi Mountains are completely handmade. It's a very, very expensive, which is another obstacle, but that I have the ability to get some of these traditionally handmade teas, I thought I wanted to make that available to people in the West. And I know because it's very, very expensive, a lot of larger companies, it's very difficult to source, but a lot of larger companies, when you start getting into teas where the wholesale cost is, $1,000, $1,500 and plus per kilo, it doesn't make financial sense. But myself starting something small, and for others who are really passionate, like want to get their hands on the best of the best, I saw an opportunity there, and and I'm pursuing that right now.
Definitely. And I have to say that your Da Hong Pao is definitely the best Da Hong Pao I've ever had.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that tea is completely handmade. No rolling machines. Every step of that was made by hand, and I like that. And 98% of the tea world now is mechanized. So it's a bit of a novelty, but it's very labor intensive. When you see the skill that is involved in making these teas, and when they're preparing these teas and rubbing the teas and agitating the teas, it's absolutely fantastic. But like anything, the more care that's put into it, the more control that you have, the better the product is going to end up. So in my business mission to bring the highest quality of tea that I can attain that's out there, when you're making tea still by hand, you can control everything. When you start bringing machines involved with processing tea, you can't control all the variables. So the quality, if you can find someone to do it, I mean, our wee mountain teas come from a little old lady on the mountain, and she makes it traditionally by hand. The quality is always going to be a little bit higher because you can control all the variables. So that's unfortunately why my teas also can be are much more pricier. But the good news for Americans is that my prices are in Canadian dollars. So right now, you're already getting a 30% discount. But, you know, quality is very, very important to me. If I had to buy lower priced teas in order to get sales, I wouldn't be in the business. So that's important to me.
And so where can people find your teas?
You can find my teas right now online at www.fourseasonstea.com. For those of you that are really interested in Chinese teas as well, my students at the Tea Association asked me to create some social media profiles. I've always been not so into that, but I'm starting to learn about that. But I also have an Instagram account at Four Seasons Tea. Twitter is at Four Seasons Tea. And we also have a Facebook account, Four Seasons Tea Company. I can be found that way right now. But as for where you can buy the teas right now, they can just be purchased through the website at fourseasonstea.com, and we have a Facebook store as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me and share your story with my readers.
You know, Nicole, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.